Somebody on the other side that you think maybe should be giving you some information about what you should be doing on this side. The next lady is one of the very gifted people that can put you in contact with that. Judy comes from, she's another one of our Georgia Mafia connection. They all come from Georgia this year. But we're happy to have her with us. She was with us in August, and we're happy to have her here again. Welcome, Judy Goodman from Georgia, our other side person.
Thank you, Dean. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be back at Global. And I'm going to ask everyone in the back to be real still and be real quiet. And I know that's real hard to do, but we've got to get everything cleaned up here real quick. So just please, everybody in the back, be real still. And if you will, please do not be walking in and out the door for just a moment. Okay, let me explain to you what just took place. Whenever I lecture, whenever I speak, whenever I work, the room is completely surrounded by angels. I walk in both worlds. I've done that since I was born. For me, that's not an unusual thing. It's not like Daniel, who had it thrust upon him all of a sudden, and I suppose that's an extremely hard thing to deal with, but for me, it's always been there, so I've learned how to adjust and how to deal. And at this time, the room is completely surrounded by angels, shoulder to shoulder. The ceiling is actually much taller now than it was, because if you could see it in the spirit realm as I do, you would see that it does not actually exist. And the angels that are here are between 8 and 10 feet tall. It varies. And the reason they're here, and the spirits that are around each of you, and there are so many, because as I've been walking around the last few days, I've been seeing so many interesting spirits and so many putting their hands up and hoping that I'll give messages. But those spirits have stepped back outside of the circle of the angels, out of respect for the open channel that has been created now. And please don't be confused, I'm not going to channel. As you see me, this is the way I'm going to stay, sadly or not, but this is it. So we're not going to be doing any channeling. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to give you some idea about what's going to happen, and the timer, if you will let me know when I've got about 20, 25 minutes.
Okay, I'll give you notice at 15.
15. Could you make it 20 or 25? Is there any way can you watch? Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to open the floor up for questions, and I'm going to ask you now not to ask personal questions. Do this out of respect for other people that would like to have personal questions answered, and we simply cannot get to everyone. I am having a workshop at 6:30 Sunday evening. If you want to attend the workshop, we will get to personal issues, personal questions. Many times there will be messages that will be passed on to you. I'll tell you a little story about how I never know what's going to happen when I'm doing personal things like that. I just came back from a trip in Virginia, and there was a man in the room. We were talking, and I opened the floor up for the last 10 or 15 minutes for personal things. And the man, if you know very much about body language at all, he had been sitting there with his arms tightly closed all evening. So I really didn't think that we had reached him in any capacity at all. I thought he was just really closed off every way that he could be. But as it turned out, when I opened the floor and I said, okay, I'm going to do something I don't normally do in an open lecture. I'm going to take some personal time. His was the first hand that went up. Well, obviously I was intrigued. I had to know what his question was. If he had given me signals all evening that he was not receiving, then I needed to know what was going on. So I asked him, I said, you have a question, sir? He said, yes, I do. He said, can you tell me if there's anyone around me? I looked at him. I just kind of slowed down the vibration and singled out a little bit of the energy, and I said, as a matter of fact, there are 2 people around you. Oh, well, could you tell me about them? I said, well, let me see what I can do. To your right is a gentleman who has a beard. In his day, would have been a seafaring gentleman. He's in a pea coat. that he didn't get out of very often because it's very tattered and very worn. Now, I'm seeing this as like a hologram. I'm seeing this in spirit, and even though this person is in spirit, they still have the full persona that relates back to that gentleman in order for me to describe him. So I had captured his attention. I got his attention. He said, "Well, does this man have a name?" I looked at him and I said, "Well, you'll know him as Paul." And when I said that, he was sitting 3 or 4 seats inside an aisle. When I said, "You'll know him as Paul," he jumped up, cleared the people, threw his hands in the air, and literally ran out the building. And I started laughing. Now, everybody else got a little concerned. They thought, well, what, she's offended him horribly or whatever, you know. And I said, "Somebody go get him before he hurts himself." And I'm laughing, and everyone else is panicking. But if you could have seen what I saw, you would have laughed too. Because what was taking place is the gentleman in spirit beside him was so happy about being recognized that when the person jumped up, cleared the people, threw his hands in the air, and ran out of the building, he ran too. It startled him. So I'm looking at the Keystone Cops. I'm looking at one in spirit going this way and one in physical going this way. He came back up to me after the evening was over and a few people had come up to the front to say hello and whatever, and he came back up and he's crying quite profusely with his arms still closed up around him. Still has a lot of work to do, I guess, but somehow we got his attention. We opened the doorway for him. He said, "Lady, I don't know who you are, but you're good." I said, "Well, I think I thank you." I said, "But why? What makes you say that?" He said, "Well, in my attic is a photograph of a man, precisely as you've described the gentleman, who was my uncle, and his name was Paul." So you see, sometimes you get someone knocking on your door, wanting to get your attention, wanting to get messages to you, wanting to let you know that in death, it's only a transition. When we step back into spirit, we return to that from whence we come. We just simply move back into what we are really all about. He said, "Oh, by the way," anybody know what the next question was? Who was the other person with me? Oh, he wasn't going to let me get off that easy. He said, "Well, you said there were 2. Who was the other person?" And I described a young boy, and I said, "I'm going to describe what I'm seeing and have to tell you that this young lad that I see reminds me much of a Huckleberry Finn persona. And his name is Timothy, and I'm being told to tell you that this young lad is with you simply because you were robbed of your childhood and you've never had a chance to be a child. And that childlike quality is so terribly important to you that you've got to reach out and embrace it, and you've got to be a child at heart part of the time." Well, he cried again. I'd offended him again. He said, "Lady," he says, "you're good." He said, "You're right. I had no childhood." I said, "Yes, sir, I know that." And I said, "But today begins a new dawning for you. Today, you'll never be the same again." I said, "A doorway has opened that you can't even possibly begin to understand." So this is what happens sometimes, and I've noticed there are a few people walking around with knees that they're kind of hobbling a little bit, so I don't want to set anybody in motion and us have to have something to deal with. So if you will, please, when we open the floor for questions, please be aware that you may ask questions at any level on any subject. If you want to talk about the ancient mysteries and the secrets that are in motion in being unlocked and the things that will be revealed, if this is where you want to discuss, we'll do that. If you want to talk about UFO and ETs, we'll do that. If you want to talk about what are spirits, what are guides, what are angels, what are ascended masters, there is nothing we cannot discuss if you like. So when we get the signal to open the floor, if you'll just move quickly to the microphone that will be set up, and then we'll just start answering questions, because I'm sure I will not cover all the things that you want to hear about, because our time is extremely limited. But as I said, if you want to attend the workshop Sunday night, we will get into a lot more personal questions. You can ask personal questions, and as much as I'm able to give to you, I will, and depending on the size of the attendance of the class, we may or may not have a lot of time to do that. I would like to tell you that I have some flyers that are going to be in the back. As I'm facing the back, it will be in the back left corner. It have contact information. It will have my website. It will have my email address. I'm still answering all my own email. It's very difficult because I'm answering email from all over the world, but I still am answering my own email, because I realize that if you take the time to ask a question, then I need to try to take the time to answer, because in a lot of cases, that's the only contact that I will have with you. So I try real hard to be as specific in responding to you as I possibly can, because what I'm about is not a cult, not a following, not about your religion. I embrace all religions. I think you've heard a number of people say that. I honor all religions. To me, religion is just another highway that we're traveling. And if we draw the analogy of there are lots of roads that go to Chicago, I don't care which road you take. If you get there, that's all that matters. So if you get to your end result, that's all that really matters. The way that you travel is unimportant. But is it? Your walk in life, as painful as it may or may not be, is an opportunity. And I've seen some of you, I've looked at some of you very close over the last few days, and I know you're not going to agree with what I'm going to say now, but guess what, my friends? As painful as your life may be, whether you were molested or you were not, whether or not you know not love or trust, no matter what it is, it was your choice. You are in that path because you chose it. The more painful it seems to be to you, what that would speak of to me is that you must be a very evolved soul, and you must be very dedicated to the path that you chose, or you would not have chosen that path. So no matter what is going on in your life, it was a choice. But what you've got to do, if you have not connected with that at this phase in your life, what you have to do is you've got to get in touch with that and find out what it was. Be sure you're learning the lessons. Be sure you're clear on it. And if it is very painful, if it is very difficult, and if you feel like you're treading water and you're going nowhere, then you need to go inside. You need to find out why. Give yourself permission to know why you're where you are. Now, if you have anything in your laps, I want you to put everything out of your laps. I'm going to give you a gift today. Some of you have been with me before, and you know what I'm going to be doing now. Remember that I said you are in an open channel. You are in the purest energy that you can be in. And before I give you the gift, what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to think about this question, and then I want a show of hands. And I expect a good show of hands. I expect some response, especially in the front row. I've got a harassing area up here, so I'm expecting good answers from up here. You hear them cackling? They think I don't have their number. I do, and it's 0 right now. We'll see if we can work up to 10 before it's over with. How many of you would like to think that this journey, part of this journey, that something that you would do would allow you to affect in a most favorable way the future generations? Oh, okay, that's good. How many of you have complained about the kids that are floating around the last few days? Oh, come on. Be honest. Do you know there are no mistakes? There are no accidents? Have you thought for one moment how incredibly significant it is that these kids from all over, they're oblivious to what's going on here, but they're still being embraced in the energy that is here? and that by your presence, by your interaction in this Congress, no matter at what level, you are in fact presenting an energy to these young people, and this is our future generation. All of it, and some of it I saw real clearly a moment ago when we were having another contest outside. But that's our future generation. And you know, I bet in our days we did things, they might have been considered naughty, but I got to believe that I wasn't that bad. Well, I believe that anyway. If my mother or my daddy was here, I'm sure they would disagree, but anyway. That is your future generation, my friends. And one of the guys that was taking it all off a minute ago, they were asking, now, you're going to ask, how do I know so much about this? I just couldn't help overhearing. You know how loud it is out there, right? Couldn't help but overhear. As I pulled my eyes back in my head. This young man who took it off at this occasion is a future attorney. The guy so proudly, oh, tell us what you're doing. He said, he's in law school. I thought, well, there we go. My daughter, your children, our grandchildren, they're going to need that attorney somehow. But you know what? He'll be completely uninhibited and probably will be a good attorney. So you are affecting the future generations, like it or not. Your presence, your energy is radiating out to them. So God bless you for that. And I hope you're aware of that. And take that quite seriously, if you will. As you walk through the lobby, try to muster up a little extra love and put it out there for them. Okay, the gift. If you have anything in your laps, get rid of it. I want you just to kind of rest. Put both of your feet on the floor for a moment. I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. Really deep breath. Just relax. And I want you to think about the worst thing in your life, the most painful, horrible, horrific, disgusting, distasteful, whatever. I want you to think of the very worst thing in your life, no matter what it is. If you were molested, that might be a good thing to think about for a moment. If you have abused someone, that might be a good thing to consider. Whatever is the most horrific or sad thing you can think about. And I want you to imagine that you have a little suitcase, if you will, sitting under your chair. And in your mind's eye, I want you to take whatever this horrible event is, and I want you to imagine that you are taking that from your heart and putting it inside the little suitcase. If you think you're having trouble imagining, just do the best that you can. Just the thought process in most cases is going to be more than sufficient. Whatever the most horrible thing is, the saddest thing, put it in the suitcase and give it up. Now imagine you've put it in the suitcase and you've put it under your chair. And you've got to feel a little bit better because you've given this up. With your eyes still closed, I want to give you a phrase that is going to be very, very important and very empowering. And I want you to remember this phrase, and I want you to incorporate it into your meditation or prayer, whichever method of communion with the Creator you utilize. I want you to remember this phrase. I give myself permission. Now, you know, a lot of you have traveled the roads a long time, and you're still working on waiting for someone to give you permission because mommies and daddies, preachers, teachers, clergy, presidents, IRS, the whole world gives us permission to do one thing or another. So in many ways, we are geared to wait until we have permission to do something. I give myself permission to release this issue, whatever it is you put in the suitcase. I give myself permission to release this issue. You can call it by name if you like. I give myself permission to accept the lesson of this issue and be very clear on it. I give myself permission to accept the lessons and be very clear. And I give myself permission to release the pain. I give myself permission to release the pain. Now here's another biggie. Eyes are still closed and we're still in this mode. Forgiveness. I don't know if you embrace past life. If you don't, you can leave out the pertinent part of what I'm going to say, but if you do, you'll feel comfortable with this. I forgive myself for anything I may have done wrong in this life or any other life. And I forgive others, all others, mommy, daddy, teachers, whomever. I forgive others who may have hurt me in some way in this life or in any other life. Take a deep breath and reach under the chair again in your mind and pull out the little suitcase, and whatever you find in there, you pick it up and you put it in your heart, and it will have an identity. It may be forgiveness, it may be love, it may be trust, it may be better health. Whatever is in that little suitcase, you take it out and you put it in your heart. And that gift is yours, my friend, from today forward. Now open your eyes. Why are you here?
We're not all there.
I like that. I like that. Did everybody hear that? We're here because we're not all there. And some of us who are all there are really still not all there. Why are you here? You had no place better to be?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. The peanut gallery over here, why are you here?
Me with family.
Oh, to support me. That's great. That's noble. I like that. Curiosity, that's an honest answer, and I like curiosity. Curiosity is how you find out about things, isn't it? Well, you know, it's no accident that you're here, and you're all much more important and much more valuable in the scheme of things than you probably give yourself credit for. And you probably think that because I knowingly walk in both worlds, I may have an edge on you. I might. But if I do, it also has a tremendous burden and a tremendous responsibility that goes along with it. And the only reason that I walk in both worlds is that I am a teacher of teachers. And did you hear the word that I used? I did not say pupil. I said teacher. Which means what? That each of you are teachers. That it is not accidental that you're here. That you're supposed to be teaching. How do we teach? How do we teach a lesson to someone? Yahoo! I got somebody out there that knows the right answers. It is by example. We teach by our example, not by our word. Our words may be false. Our example will be most true. 25 minutes already. I just got started. Okay, we're going to take questions from the floor, so if you want to start moving to the microphone in the back, we will take some questions. I do want to tell you that I have an audio book. I have a few with me. If you are interested in this, you can contact me, and I don't have them set out on the table. I have brought a few with me. If you're interested, you can contact me. If not, if you go and check out the flyer for contact information, you can also get that information on the website. I'm not real sure if we're going to do private appointments. We're still working on that, but we're most definitely going to be doing the lecture, so I'd like to see you there. Okay, do we have any questions? Can we bring the lights up in the back just a little bit? Okay, sir, you have to go back to the microphone in the back if you want to ask a question so that everybody will have the benefit of hearing. There you go, thank you. If you'll give us your name, you just use your first name and tell us where you're from, and then be brief in your question if you will.
Hi, Judy. It's Josie. I'm from Richmond, Virginia.
I remember Josie. Does everybody remember Josie? Josie always has lots of good questions.
I don't know. I'm curious about the current events, what the other side has to say about them. Will our president finish his term in office? What's going to happen to our country in the near future and globally, if there's any word that we can do, if we need to be warned and be prepared to be running for caves or stay where we are or what?
Okay, that's a multifaceted question. Thank you for the question, and let me see if I can answer in a way that will address a good portion of that. Recently, when I was in Virginia, we took a side trip and went to Monticello, which is the home of Thomas Jefferson, you may remember. And Patty was with me, Ken Elliott was with me. We hooked into a group of about 7 or 8 people. And because Patty is also a very in-tune person, we were just having a little bit better than average tour. They ought to have charged us. They would have made more money that day because we had our own experiences. We were seeing things in spirit. And I did have occasion to see Thomas Jefferson. Now, there are some of you that will realize that Thomas Jefferson is in a physical incarnate right now. But you must also understand that there are some souls that work at a highly evolved level that are able to be in more than one place at the time. And the core of Thomas Jefferson still resides at Monticello. The reason he's there is because we need him to be there. We visit that, and we're expecting the history, and we expect those things to be there. Well, I did ask Thomas Jefferson what he thought about the politics of today, and I think his answer was somewhat appropriate in that he said that it was very hard for our leaders to be the best leaders that they could be today, and he also indicated that if he were alive in today's time, that he felt very certain he would not pass the scrutiny of justice. So there is a lot of unrest in our politics and our political seats. I do think that Mr. Clinton, President Clinton, is going to finish his term. I think that it's very evident with the way things have gone on. But I believe he is going to finish it up, and probably, quite frankly, not that I'm in agreement with his activities and his behavior. I firmly believe that good comes from everything, and I believe that we can take what has happened and learn something from it and make this be a positive thing. And remember that if you don't buy into all of the negative of these things, then you can make this become a positive. You can make this be a better thing. As far as Y2K, you've heard a lot of talk about that. There are a lot of people that are eloquently speaking about the issues of Y2K. Speaking as it relates to the United States on a scale of 1 to 10, I believe the United States will hit about a 6 in degree of difficulty, and I believe that the worst part of the difficulty will last anywhere from 3 to 6 months, which does not mean that that's all that we will be dealing with it, but that will be the most difficult adjustment period of time. Now, that's the way it stands right now as I read the energy, and that has stayed that way for some time. But again, don't buy into the pain and the grief of this. Remember that we manifest our reality. So it is a wise thing to be prepared. There are so many things that we can do, and I don't need to belabor that point and go over it because you've heard this already, very eloquently put. What I would say is, remember, we are the keepers of the clock in all of these things, and we are manifesting a reality. And if we continue to think that it will be the worst possible scenario, then we create the panic and it will become that. So be prepared, use good common sense, but try to put some positive energy back in behind it. And if you feel like you need to move to the hills, then you need to move to the hills. But don't do it out of panic. There are people that are making moves and making adjustments in their lives, but it's something that comes from within their core, something that is deep within them that is addressing that. So if you have that inclination, then move and deal with it, but don't do it because you're following what other people are doing.
Judy, aside from Y2K, what I was concerned with was the quiet preparation behind the scenes of Russia preparing for war, and with a pact with China, and China preparing for war,
well,
and of course our secrets going over to China.
There is a lot of that going on, and again, I would just encourage each of us not to buy into the panic of that or to buy into the negative aspects of that. It is going on. What can you do about it? I think you can offer all of the good prayer, the good hope, and the good energy that you can. I mean, how many of you are into the internet and you keep getting the hits and the flyers from people that are very involved in global prayer, global communication, and lifting the universe up? And here's another very important thing. Don't ever limit your thought process on being able to change these things and turn them around. As you think, so shall it be. And if you only think you can affect yourself, that's all you'll be able to do. Never limit that energy. Always reach out beyond this earth and the universe. Okay, let's move on to the next person. Thank you for your question, Jesse.
My name is Mazibaton. I'm from Mount Dora. I wanted to know about the sixth seal. I heard that it just opened, and also what is it, and what is the seventh seal, and when will that open?
The sixth seal has been opened. When I last looked at the energy revolving around these particular chain of events that must take place or will take place before the end of the earth as we know and understand it, and you'll notice that I always say the end of the earth as we know and understand it, because it's not exactly the way you perceive it to be, where we just all fall off into the universe. It's not exactly that way, and I think probably the workshop is a better place to get into that at greater length. But the seventh seal is a seal of illness and plague, of something that we have not seen and we have not heard of yet. It is, if we think AIDS is bad, it is a corruption that will cross many levels and many barriers, and it has been located, and I pray that it will not be opened anytime soon.
About these seals, what are the mystical attributes of them?
What do you mean exactly? The symbolism?
No, well, there's the psychological mind, which allows us to translate what you're giving us, and then there's the psychomystical mind, which is another aspect. And I'm asking for the mystical aspects, the Kabbalic math that's around that.
All right, let me see if I'm understanding your question. What does the seal mean to us from a mystical or a spiritual point of view? Is that what you're saying?
Spiritual is what you gave us.
Right.
Mystical is beyond that.
Okay. What does it?
It's the ciphers that are locked within that.
Okay. Part of what this is about is where we're supposed to go. It's a combination of things, as I have spent some time before I came into this life and reviewed some of these things. I saw the beginning and the ending of all time, and I saw seals. And I also saw that part of the seal has to do with a psychological factor of people, of changing their thought process, of lifting some people's vibratory rates up and moving them out of this plane and leaving some people behind. And the symbology of that will be recognized by some and will not be seen by others, and there will be some people that will be left behind. I'm not sure if I'm answering that exactly the way you need to hear it.
Well, it's part of it. I already understand that answer, but
Okay.
I'm looking for what the sixth seal was, because I know there seems to be more gifts and so forth coming. There's many sides to these seals. There's the physical, what you're talking about,
Right.
and the plagues and so on, and the seventh. But then there's, when we let go, we also embrace more of our divinity and so forth. So it's what
comes next, the transition and where we're moving. Is that what you're getting to?
right, because there's no death. We don't go anywhere.
That's
we
right.
are here.
That's right.
So what?
We move, we raise our vibration. The vibration will be raised by some people, but it will not be raised of all people, just because that is where their level of knowledge and understanding is. And for those that recognize the symbology of the seal and know what is taking place when this seal is actually broken, their vibratory rates will be lifted. In fact, some of the people that are going to be participating in this, their vibratory rates are already being lifted, and there will be some that will not actually go through a physical death. They will simply move on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question.
I'm Jenna from Oak Hill, Florida.
Hi, Jenna.
And please comment on the either geological or artificiality of the face on Mars and the other artifacts at Cydonia.
Well, there's a lot of discussion about the face on Mars and whether or not it may in fact be a replica of things that we have here that are connected to our pyramids and our Sphinx. And there is actually some ET involvement in that. There is some ET involvement in the pyramids that are here. And I have to take that to another level and let you know that when I say ET, it goes beyond what we are superficially understanding at this level of ET now. It goes beyond that energy. It's something that very few of us can embrace and can encompass at this time. It's very much like the speaker that was talking earlier today was talking about how sometimes when you start looking in spirit and when you see things the way they really are meant to be, you will see it in geometrics and in forms. And this particular energy and this involvement comes from that place. It's a place that I have seen that I call it behind the blue wall. And that blue wall of energy has nothing but those geometrics and those symbologies. And that is part of where the knowledge came from that has created this facade, this imagery on Mars, and is part of the creators of the pyramids and Sphinx here. And when the secrets of the pyramids are open, we will find, if you can see the energy, you will see that same blue energy that is behind that blue wall that I have seen out in what I call the dark part of the sky. But it's part of our heritage. It's part of who we are. Some of us, in fact, are part of the creators of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Judy. I'm Diane from Boulder, Colorado.
Hi, Diane.
It's come to my attention that there's possibly somebody who's putting some biological entities out in the contrails, or they're calling them chemtrails, from airlines or from airplanes. And my question is, if this is true, how can we neutralize that with intention?
I have heard things similar to that. I have heard that there may be some other things taking place that are very similar to that. When I look out into energy, I do not see it in actuality. I would just encourage you that if you think that that's happening, try to embrace it in a good and positive light and try to undo it. Try to just undo that energy. But when I look, I've investigated that, I don't see it as being a reality right now. I see it as a thought process. Much like if we're discussing it here today, then it's a thought process. And if we dwell on it too long and if we give it too much energy, we can manifest it into a reality. So what we need to do is manifest it as a non-existent, just a rumor. Yes, sir.
I'm James Hegemeyer. They call me the honey man or the bee man.
From Tennessee.
And one thing that's been bothering me, when my 6th grade reader, he had Admiral Byrd's polar exposition, and he flew into the pole with the navigator and saw green vegetation, and yet we've no proof. And I went to the Library of Congress with 2 representatives, and the Byrd's information is not there, and yet there has been photographs by Ray Palmer that it's flat. And I talked to a man that flew over the pole, and he said it wasn't hollow. And it was just, this happened to be I talked to him in San Francisco. And I said, there wasn't any hole there. And he said, well, there's always, I said, what was it? It was clouds. And I said, with always clouds? Well, he said, oh, there's 70-some pines. But he said, out further, there was clear water. I said, it couldn't be warm air coming up, could it? And he got white as a sheet and went to his motel room. Now, I would like to know if it's hollow and there's supposed to be life in there, and do the flying saucers come from there?
I'm not aware that the flying saucers come from that area, but I do know that there are some underground areas where flying saucers that are legitimately flying saucers, and I know we're going to get a lot of controversy about that because there is a lot of that is government-made. Okay, so there's some real, there's some not real. I'm not aware that that is flying saucers. I have looked into that, and I have, in fact, seen green patches when I have been looking with the spirit eye, and I have seen flowers. I do not see any life force underneath the ground there, but what I do see is I see a life force moving to that area and utilizing that space to try to make these things grow and to see if they can help us later on, and that is an ET involvement, what I have seen. Now, you know, in all things, if you can embrace the concept of ET, something other than ourselves, and why in the world would we think that we are the only form of creation? I mean, that's a limiting thought, isn't it? There's probably something else out there somewhere. What does it look like? Who knows? But you can't just assume that because it's different from us that it may be necessarily harmful, although there are some reports of some of the situations being harmful. So in one of the visions, and there's a difference in dreams and visions, but in one of the clearest visions that I've ever had shows the end of time as we know and understand it. And guess who was there helping us? It was a life form other than us, like we would call E.T. And while they were there interacting or walking around, they were not interacting with the people, but they were putting up shelters, they were putting up hospital facilities, food facilities, and they did that because they had looked at us and interacted with us at some levels in order to know what it would take to sustain life for us. What I have seen when I have visited that is I have seen E.T. involvement, a life force other than ourselves that is trying to utilize that because it's a place that not very many people go and it's a place that's not observed, and they are using that to grow and to try to see what it takes to sustain life for us.
Thank you, and I think one thing I should have said first, I've only seen auras 3 times until today, and I saw it around you, so I figured that was special.
Well, thank you, sir. This peanut gallery up here has got to go. Okay, let's move along very quickly now. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I did. My name is Countess, and I'm from North Palm Beach, Florida. And am I off again?
No, just talking to the mic.
I have 2 comments, and a third one is the one I would like you to really concentrate on. Is number 1, Jordan Maxwell, a tremendous researcher, mentioned that the 7 seals is something absolutely wonderful. It is the awakening of the 7 chakras, and that this idea of the end times is also very exciting. It hasn't got anything to do with, the planet Earth just falling into infinity, but that we are moving away from the constellation, the age of Pisces, of the 2 fish, and we are now moving into the age of Aquarius, the water carrier, and a great transformation is going to take place.
But let me interrupt your train of thought, if I may. Don't you think, though, that as wonderful as transition is for us, that sometimes transition is painful for us, and that even though there may be some pain associated in that transition, the end result is what we're looking for, and it is where we're wanting to be? So while it is probably not a really bad thing, it's going to be a wonderful thing when it's over.
Of course, it's the transformation towards the world of harmony, where this is what I'm getting at.
Do you know that the Earth is also in its transition? Are you aware that the Earth is actually vibrating at a different rate than it's ever vibrated before? Are you aware that the Earth is also evolving? Yes. It is. Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead.
Another wonderful individual, and others are discovering the same thing too, is that what has been manipulated and put into the different Bibles of the world, and which has been taught by the Talmudists and the Bible people, including the Pope, is really inaccurate information that what actually happened historically took place right here in North America. And the splitting of the Red Sea was not the Red Sea, but the Colorado River. And all the events explained and put into the Bible actually took place right here in North America, in the 4 corners of this continent.
Okay, I would have to agree with you that there are some misinterpretations in the Bible. The Bible is a word as interpreted by man, and man is a very weak and fallible thing. But I am not in agreement with the fact that this took place in our country. It took place all over.
Oh, yes,
I'm sorry?
Would you say that a lot of this beginning took place from the continent of Mu, Lemuria, and then we moved into America, the Orient.
It has actually taken place, like you say, very much transitional, and it has moved all over the world, all over the world. Part of the transitions have actually taken place all over the world, but there are some things in the Bibles, not just the Bible, the Qurans, the Kabbalah, everything, but there is a fiber of truth in all of those, isn't there? Is there not a fiber of truth in each of those things that binds each of these religious teachings together? Basic elements like be the best you can be, and I'm not quoting it exactly, but I'm trying to say this loosely. Be the best that you can be, universal love, unconditional love. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Walter Kaplinski, New Lenox, Illinois, and this is, since we're on the same topic, it was a breakfast topic. What was the rationale of Moses and Akhenaten to create this fable story of Exodus?
You believe it's a fable story?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'd have to agree with you that it is also fable, and I think a lot of times the reason these stories are created is to cushion us in a lot of ways in our evolvement. It gives us things to believe in. Some people want to latch on to that. Some people need it, and I believe that's part of what the process comes for. And I'm not sure that it's always creation as much as it's an evolvement and a misinterpretation that gathers momentum and just keeps growing and growing. But that's happened in a lot of different ways, sadly.
This creates a diversification, though, in regards to people's quest for the truth, in regards to which way are they going to go.
But out of that, don't we become very strong by going through that and learning that there is perhaps some disillusion in part of our journeys and part of the things we're learning? Is that not part of what our evolvement is to learn discernment, is to listen to any story, to watch anything, and to find the truth? And the truth for me may be different from you. It teaches us in a different way. It teaches us how to discern and how to find our truth. And some people will say that that is very true. It will be their truth. But I'm not in agreement with it as being truth, but it will be for some people. But that's how we learn how to discern, is to have these things come up, and by having conversations and discussions like we're having today. Well, because you might, if you took a vote, half may agree, half may not, but that's how we grow, by talking about it.
The greatest problem with this, it occurred from the originators of all the what we call mystery schools, like Naten and Amenhotep and Moses. They all engendered this whole situation, and that brought about this where we now have quests, and where we initially had the truth to begin with. Mystery schools, we knew that, but now we have religion and all these other things.
I agree.
My name is Mary, and hello, and welcome.
Hi, Mary.
Thank you. I'm just curious, is it your belief that ETs are actually separate from us, or are they just an extension or another vibration of who we are, or another aspect of us?
Separate from us only in that they look different, they interact different, some of their intelligence seems to be much more evolved, but they are part of creation just like we are. They walk a little different path, they look a little different, but one thing that I know for certain is that they are hurtling towards their eventuality, towards their future, and I do know that they cannot get there without us, and we cannot get there without them. And we are supposed to interact, and we are supposed to work together.
Are you of the belief that we are actually in more than one dimension at one time as a spirit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are in more than one dimension at one time. And as I had said earlier, there are some people that are evolved enough that they are doing this simultaneously, and they are very aware that they're doing it simultaneously. And not only can they be interdimensional, they can, in the same dimension, be in more than one place at the time, if need be.
Right.
Such is the persona of Christ. Or the Virgin Mary. How do you suppose that persona, that energy can possibly be in so many places? Can it be true? Yes, it can be, because that energy is evolved enough that it can actually be in all those places at one time if need be.
And do you feel that because there is a consciousness that ETs are separate from us, that there's a fear base in that rather than a sense of connectedness and the fact that we're all of one vibration and that we're really all of the same evolution on some level.
Perhaps the fear factor comes out of our lack of knowledge and understanding. And quite honestly, some of the stories that we hear certainly would make me, if I couldn't see it a little differently than some people, would make me fear it and make me think that it was something other than me. But it is all part of the same creation, working at different levels for different purposes that will come together at some point in time. But I think more misinformation than anything is what makes us think that it's actually a separate energy or a separate life force altogether.
Well, there's just one comment that I'd like to make.
Okay.
That during the time of Christ, I believe, people thought he was of different consciousness and different energy, and he was, or he, she, whatever that vibration was feared instead of embraced. And
well, it was on the one hand, and then it was embraced on another, but don't you think that's probably true about Buddha or Allah or any leader, any figure that actually walks around and by people's faith they were healed? You know, that he interacted and he taught, that he was a teacher?
Yes, I was just wondering if well, basically, I guess I was probably trying to make a point rather than asking questions, but because I oftentimes hear people suggesting that ETs are separate, and I always feel that they're part of me and that I'm a part of consciousness and a part of it
I agree with you. We are all one and the same. Though we look different and though we act different and though there are so many different faces here today, we are all one and the same. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so very much for your time. It's been a real pleasure for me.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Dean.
Now you know that why